In the Ukraine, we've had protests for 3 months straight now, and it's over the issue of whether they're going to get assistance from the Russians. The Russians had promised them a $15 billion bailout. After the controversy, they pulled that. Now, that's going to be very relevant in the recent outbreak of violence that I'm about to tell you about. Or they're going to go in Europe's direction. The protesters and the opposition want them to go towards Europe and get assistance from the European Union. And the current leader of Ukraine wants to go in the other direction. That's why he's trying to deal with the Russians. Now, the reason why we had a flare-up today is because the Russians put in an extra $2 billion. They'd already bought $3 billion worth of bonds from the Ukrainians, and now they did an extra $2 billion. And that was after they had reached a tenuous agreement, the opposition and the current ruling party in Ukraine had. And they had, what the government had done was release some of the prisoners that they got from the protests, and the protesters had moved out of a building that they had been sitting in since December. So they get this deal, and it looks like right after the deal, the Ukrainian government comes in and takes more money from the Russians, which obviously the opposition viewed as somewhat of a betrayal. And then mayhem breaks out. So now the numbers, unfortunately, for the deceased and the hurt are increasing every single day and every single hour that we look at the story, unfortunately. 2 policemen were killed by gunshot wounds. 7 civilians died, 3 of whom were shot. So it's not just somebody getting hit in the head by a stone or anything like that. People are shooting one another. But right before we went on air, we found out that the death toll is now up to 13, and 4 more policemen have been killed. So there is clearly violence on both sides, no question about that. And you saw some of the fires there in that footage. Well, protesters have rushed some of the police lines. They've also set fires to different things like tires, to vehicles. And so there is considerable mayhem in the streets. And then the cops have pushed back with tear gas, and they're firing some sort of metal balls. So to what degree those are killing people is an open question. Now, again, at least 40 police have been injured in clashes, 150 protesters have been injured, but that number keeps going up all the time. Opposition leader Arseniy Yatsenyuk says, "We see that this regime again has begun shooting people. They want to sink Ukraine in blood." These are obviously very strong words. He continues, "We will not take one step back from this square. We have nowhere to retreat to. Ukraine is behind us. Ukraine's future is behind us," saying that there will be no retreat. Dmitro Shulko, 35-year-old, says this looks like a war against one's own people, but we will defend ourselves. And finally, opposition leader Vitali Klitschko, of course a famous boxer, says, "We will not go anywhere from here. This is an island of freedom, and we will defend it," referring to the square. So now that the violent hostilities have broken out, the police, of course, are trying to clear people from that square. And what Klitschko is mainly asking for, and I think is the best way to go here, is early elections. It's a parliamentary system, and they could certainly call for elections to see who the Ukrainian people are on the side of. And if you lose those elections and it's fair elections, then you say, all right, well, they decided to go in either the Russian direction or the European Union direction, but that would be fair, right? And by the way, obviously, a lot of people in Ukraine do support the leader as well, and not just the opposition groups, but President Viktor Yanukovych has significant support in some of the areas in the Ukraine where they mainly speak Russian. So he could win the elections, and in a parliamentary system, early elections are fairly common. So rather than having literally blood on the streets, as you're seeing here, what would be the far better way to go is to call early elections. Now, of course, both sides will say, no, the other side started it. One side will say the protesters started it, and the other side will say the government has police power. They're the ones beating us with batons. They're the ones charging at us, and they're the ones who started it. At this point, to me, it's not super relevant who started it on any given day, because this has been going back and forth for 3 months. The most important thing is to resolve it, and the way you do that in a free society is through elections. So I agree with Klitschko, at the very least, on that front.